How'd you like to finish the college basketball season paying under $30 per week? Between now and Selection Sunday on March 12th, there's still tons of regular season college basketball action to go. Plus, all of the conference tournaments and Wager Talk and Sports Memo are announcing their March Madness Bonanza special that will include the rest of the college basketball regular season, conference tournaments, NCAA tournament through the national championship, and any plays released in the NIT or CBI tournaments. That's right, from Monday, February 27th through Monday, April 3rd, there are 5 full weeks of hoops action, which breaks down to under $30 per week. Sign up for this promotion now on your favorite handicappers homepage and get the rest of the college basketball season through the national championship in Houston on Monday, April 3rd, plus all non-March Madness tourneys, including the NIT and CBI, all for only $149. That's under $5 a day for one of the best betting experiences in sports. Some call March Madness the most exciting time in sports betting, so act fast as the March Madness Bonanza special is only available for a limited time. Grab your favorite college basketball handicapper, or perhaps add 2 or 3 college hoops experts to make this March Madness not only exciting, but also profitable. No coupon is needed, just head to the homepage of the handicapper of choice and lock the $149 price in now. As the earlier you sign up, the more days you receive.
What's up, guys? You're watching Wager Talk TV, and this is puck time for Thursday, March 2nd. We have 4 great games to break down today. Of course, I am Andrew McGinnis. I have Carmine Bianco and Brian Leonard. Today's games, we are breaking down the Buffalo Sabres at the Boston Bruins, Pittsburgh taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning. We have the Maple Leafs and Calgary Flames, and the Minnesota Wild going head-to-head with the Vancouver Canucks. Some great games to break down. It is an exciting time to be a bettor and a fan of the NHL. So I look forward to breaking down these games, getting Carmine and Bryan's thoughts on these games, and let's not waste any time. But before we do that, actually, let's go around the horn, see how everyone's doing today. Carm, how are things, buddy?
Man, Andrew, I started yesterday off like 3-0 soccer, feeling really good going into the night games. And then I have like a 1-3 night. The only play that won was the Robertson prop that I gave on the show as a best bet. The Rangers took some really stupid penalties in the first period when it looked like they came out of the gates firing, had all the momentum, and then 3 straight penalties. The Flyers get a goal, and then that game was just terrible from that point forward. So we lose that one. But and I hate it, so apologies. But it's we're just gonna get right back on the horse and try and pump out some winners moving forward. Some really good games, some odd games yesterday, Andrew. I'll get to Brian in a second, but I started looking at some of these score lines yesterday, and I was out. I went out with some friends. They're all wearing their Leafs jerseys, and they were confusing the people in the bar because every time Edmonton scores, these guys are cheering and they got Leaf jerseys on. And then one guy asked the question, and my friends were like, "We bet the over, so we don't care who scores. We just want goals." And then you look at that game. That was the Colorado game, 7-5, Colorado and New Jersey, an absolutely insane game as well. So quite a few surprises. The Dallas Stars get back on in the win column, and that probably bodes well for them as well too. That team total that I wanted to release after the show, it was 3.5 minus 130. I went to put it in a couple of hours later. It was like, Andrew, you had mentioned to me, these team totals really take off, and I think I mentioned on the show. I went to put it in. It was at minus 175. I'm like, I'm not going to release a team total with minus 175 juice. I'd be doing a little bit of injustice to everybody if I did that. It got there. And you don't pay juice on winning wagers by just not putting it out. But with that said, let's move on. Bri, how are things?
Things are fine now that I was able to mute my microphone. My cat's going crazy this morning for some reason. I think it's the wind outside. It just can't figure out what's going on. But yeah, everything's going fine. Split yesterday, pulled out our 4-star, lost the 3 on Carolina last night against Vegas, a game that could have gone either way. But I was impressed by the way Vegas played yesterday against a quality team, and they've got another one coming up tomorrow as the New Jersey Devils come to town. I just want a little bit of a warning. I've been very limited on my plays the last week or so, and I would expect more of that to come. Anytime you're around the trade deadline, you don't really know who's going to play, who's going to make it there in time to play the next game. And if they do, you don't know how they fit in without practices. So keep your bets a little bit lower right now at this time of year. I could see some games where we could see some things that we're not expecting. And we don't want to be caught with especially at this time of year with all these big trades, especially in the Eastern Conference. We're all bringing in all these bigger players and better players. We've already been limited by a lot of $3 and $4 favorites this year. It's going to be even higher now that some of the weaker teams have traded away their veterans.
Yeah, and Brian, a couple points. First of all, you're completely right. We saw at the end of last season as well, too, in the last 10 or 15 game pack for each teams, there was some unbelievably high prices, and you're seeing like -400s, -450s, and we've seen them sporadically. And some of these teams go down. I think Carolina. I think it was Carolina went down as a -500 favorite. So we're going to see those. Probably some opportunities for people who really like dogs to jump on board if they can find a right spot for them. And then your point to with the trades and everything going on. And this is one of the things that. There was no info on it leading up to last night's game and the Rangers game, but they ended up playing the game with only 16 players. I think 11 forwards, 5 defensemen in that game. They were short a couple players and didn't call a couple guys up, and I'm not sure if that was a cap issue on bringing them up or what the problem was. I would have obviously preferred them to have a full lineup there, so a little disappointed in that, in finding that out. But with that said, the trade deadline, we're seeing some unbelievable moves, Andrew, that I think you posted a couple of them yesterday. The Ottawa Senators have literally given up nothing in the last year, and they've got the Brindacat, Giroux, and now a very good defenseman.
Yeah, picking up Jacob Chikrin is huge for them, and he is not on an expiring contract. He's got some time remaining on that deal, so it's not just a short-term rental for the Senators team trying to make a playoff push. They've got a good defenseman. That Atlantic division is super exciting. Of course, as a Montreal Canadiens fan, I don't really want to see the Ottawa Senators building a great team, but their GM has stepped up and done very well over the past year and a half. And just a quick comment on what Brian was saying there. I agree that a lot of times that these trades can make a team look really good, or make an opponent that traded away lots of guys look very bad. But sometimes chemistry issues can be there. There can be chemistry problems. You throw a bunch of guys in the ice that have not played in the same team or in the same lines, it can throw guys off. And, I feel like a lot of people were talking about the Carolina Hurricanes not making many moves. Well, they made another one yesterday, but sometimes the team that doesn't make that many moves actually ends up being the successful team because they have the same guys they've been rolling with the entire season. And what's been working, like I said yesterday, the Maple Leafs right now, the entire thing for them the rest of the year is chemistry, because they have the talent now, but they have like 7 new players on their roster, it seems like. So speaking of new roster players, the Boston Bruins, who we're going to talk about right now, playing host to the Buffalo Sabres, they have just acquired Tyler Bertuzzi, which is just, isn't Bertuzzi just like the perfect Boston Bruins player? Like when you think of like how the Boston Bruins are known, the old-fashioned big bad Bruins, that's what they're known for, is players like Bertuzzi, a guy that's a work hard forward, a guy that's not afraid to be aggressive, a good playoff guy, young player. Bertuzzi is a guy that I feel like some other teams should have picked up, but he is a great land there for the Boston Bruins. But jumping into it, of course, we talk about the first game home off of road trips and all of these different situations, guys, that we look at here. Of course, the Boston Bruins, they play Vancouver, win that one 3-1. Seattle, win that one 6-5. Edmonton, no problem, 3-2. Calgary, no problem, 4-3. And what I've been continuously saying about this team pretty much all year on Puck Time here is that this Boston Bruins team, what I think will help them going into the playoffs, stay focused, I guess, not have any like flat spots and stuff, is that, guys, they've won a lot of close games. And some people might look at that and say, oh, well, maybe they aren't that good then if all their games are so close. No, I think that means they're great. It takes a really good team to win close games like this, to continuously and consistently win 1-goal games. Like I said, look at that road trip. They won a 6-5 game, a 3-1 game, 3-2, and a 4-3. Only one game that they won out of those 4 games I just listed was decided by more than 1 goal. To me, that's very, very impressive to look at there. But Carm, look, Buffalo has been an over team. They've been scoring goals, been involved in high-scoring games, but I do trust this Boston Bruins defense, and I know they are back from a road trip, but I'm going to actually expect a lower-scoring game here. I do have a slight lean to Buffalo plus 1.5, but Brian, you mentioned it on Wager Talk today a couple days ago. You got to have something wrong with you, I think, to go against the Bruins at this point. So I'm just going to go with the under. Carm, what do you have for us?
Yeah, I agree. I think I mentioned on a previous show, don't look for reasons to fade the Boston Bruins unless they really give you a reason to do it. I mean, you can look for some points on why the Sabres could spring the upset in this one. Andrew, is they beat Boston and they lost to the Bruins 3-1 at home. A couple third period goals by the Bruins. They beat Boston in Boston, and one of their few losses this year, beating them in OT, beating 4-3. The Bruins were returning off a road trip on that one. That was their first back off a road trip, and now their first back off a 4-game road trip. I'm kind of on the opposite of you here. I'm leaning to the over here. We got Swayman in goal. He was really good against the Edmonton Oilers, but it's just, if it's not Allmark, I tend to lean with some overs. I think this is one of those games where I think the Sabres are going to get some goals, and the Bruins, I think, eventually will outscore them, which is one of the reasons why I like the over. The Sabres team total is at 2.5 even money, and I could literally see this being another 4-3 or 5-3 game, but this time in the Bruins' favor. Maybe that first game back home after, the first game back after this road trip has their legs a little wonky in that first period, and maybe the Sabres get a jump on them, but the Bruins are just such a good team. And Swayman, he's 4-0-1 against the Sabres lifetime. His one loss was the one 4-3, the 4-3 game earlier this year. And at home, he's been very good as well too. 8-1-2, a 929 save percentage and 183 goals against average. But that's the Bruins as a whole this season at home. With Allmark and with Swayman. So I like the over here. I'm leaning to the over, but I'm also going to take a shot on the Sabres team total over 2.5 even money. The Bruins team total at 3.5. You've got to lay $1.90. I'm not doing that. Brian, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, tough game to handicap. I could see reasons to play both sides here. Boston's a team I don't want to go against. They are playing the third game in 4 days, all in 3 different cities. So that may have an effect here in their first game home. I usually don't like to play those teams there, but Boston lost 1 game in the month of February, and that was by 1 goal. I believe they lost to Philadelphia. I'm not standing in the way of the Boston Bruins, and I think this pickup puts them in a position. I believe a couple of sites that I was looking at says they now have a 30% chance of winning the Stanley Cup. Now, a lot of guys who follow this will think that's kind of low. But when you get to the playoffs, you got to play all these rounds. It's tough, and you're playing against good teams, back-to-back games. It's tough to do. And so for them to be 30%, that's one of the highest I've seen out of anybody with this many games left in the season, to have them that high at 30%. And they deserve to be 30%. And as you said, Andrew, this is a team that can beat you either way. I think one of the reasons why they win so many low-scoring games is they take the lead and they just play defense. They've got the best goalie having a tremendous season in a game the other day where he actually gave up a goal and scored a goal himself. You ask a goalie coming into the game if you could score as many goals as you give up, they'll take that every time. But it's a situation for Boston where they're just so good right now. I can't go against them. But Buffalo, if you've looked at them this year, they're a team who plays to the competition. They've played some weaker teams and they've lost to those teams. And then they play some good teams and they pull off some upsets. So as you mentioned, they beat Boston last time. They're going to give Boston all they can handle. I kind of like the the team total that you mentioned, Carmine, though, 2.5. Not going to go against Boston to win the game because I think they're going to win the game. But that over 2.5 looks pretty tasty. I kind of like that.
Let's do it. And Andrew, I'm just going to quickly jump in because I was just responding to a couple of comments. And, I mentioned on yesterday's show, and I think the Monday show as well, too, we're going to try and cover games regardless of sometimes the prices. And the Bruins are always going to be a big price at home of teams that are currently in playoff races because they have more meaning to them. So we're not going to cover a game like the San Jose Sharks and the St. Louis Blues, or Detroit and the Seattle Kraken. Detroit in selling off their players after losing back-to-back against the Ottawa Senators, pretty much written off making the playoffs, I believe. These are games still of importance. So those are the ones we're going to try and cover. And we're not giving you a lean on a minus 300 team. We're telling you that sometimes you can find a play within a game with a big line that offers some value. So that's the important point I'm trying to make with in choosing these games.
Yeah, guys, and the Boston Bruins and Buffalo Sabres, there's actually a decent chance that they could play each other in the playoffs. Let's not forget it. I mean, that wild card right now between Pittsburgh, you've got, of course, the Sabres, and even the Ottawa Senators. If they keep on winning, it would be wild to see the Ottawa Senators somehow sneak into the playoffs. But potential playoff matchup here, guys. And as you all know, once the playoffs happen, anything out there could happen, and there could be upsets. So I do believe that not just a game against a big opponent right now for Buffalo, but a game at the top of the standings and a game against the team for them to really show themselves and everybody else that they can hang with the best of them. So these games are important to teams like Buffalo. Of course, they are catching the Bruins in a tough spot, but I'll stick with my under there. But my lean, as much as it's rough to say, like you guys say, it's hard to go against the Bees. I'll say plus 1.5 for the Buffalo Sabres is what I'll go with here. Let's jump into the next game. I'm going to go right to Brian. We've got the Penguins and Tampa Bay Lightning going head-to-head here. Brian, this Penguins team, they're going for a push right now. They're trying to make the playoffs. They've had a long streak of making the playoffs. When that core has been there with Letang and Malkin and Sid. They're plus 140 tonight against the Tampa Bay Lightning that are minus 165. What are your thoughts here in this matchup?
Well, I said a few days ago that I don't think Pittsburgh's very good at this point. And ever since I said that, they haven't lost. They've won 3 straight games. One of the streakiest teams in hockey this year. We've seen that all year long. Big revenge game for Tampa Bay here. They lost pretty bad. So I believe it was 7-4 in Pittsburgh just the other day. So you get that quick revenge on Tampa Bay here, but the scheduling situation is not that great for Tampa Bay. And I looked at Tampa Bay in the revenge situations that I have on the season. They're 1-1 and they're down $40 if you bet 1 star on each of these teams. So they haven't been like a Boston, who I believe is 4-0, 5-0 in revenge, that kind of thing. So you never know what you're going to get out of Tampa Bay. The line tells me I think there's some value here on Pittsburgh. I'm looking that way. It's a team right now, as I mentioned, starting to turn it around. And I think there's a little bit of value here on Pittsburgh. And for a card that I'm not very excited about, this is one of my better plays on the card tonight.
I mean, it's funny you say that, Brian, and it happens to all of us. You start to crap over a team and say, they're no good. And then they go on a run, and that's the thing. It happens to all of us. But I said it a while ago about this Penguins team is this. I agree with you. They weren't playing very well. This is a team that was playing very inconsistent hockey, but you look at where they were in the standings. You know what I mean? Like when you can say a team is not playing very well, but they're in a playoff spot, or they're, below that wild card line, it kind of shows you that, their okay level has been enough to be where they are now. Now, what happens if they start playing good hockey or great hockey? That's what I find kind of funny, because Carm, I haven't really been excited about this Penguins team all year long. I don't know how many times I've bet on them and, watched highlights of them that have impressed me, but here they are sitting in a playoff spot and actually starting to go on a run here. But as Brian talked about, there is that revenge factor here. What do you think, Carm, in this game?
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I look at this game and Brian made some really good points about it. You look at Tampa, and they've been playing so well for so long, and I don't think they're going to close off the rest of their season by tapering it down at all. I think again, as I mentioned yesterday, getting the number 2 seed behind the Boston Bruins is going to be an important one in that series against the Leafs. I think both teams are trying to improve themselves and set them up for that first round of the playoffs. But they haven't looked good in the last 4 games. They lose to the Sabres 6-5 in OT. They beat the Detroit Red Wings when Vasilevsky stood on his head. They were outshot 45-18 in that game in Detroit. Win that game 3-0. The third goal being obviously an empty netter. Then they lose to Pittsburgh 7-3. They lose to Florida 4-1, in which the Panthers completely outplayed them in that game and shut them right down. And you're wondering, do they bounce back? Every good team goes through a spurt where they lose 4 or 5 games in a row, or they lose like 5 and 6 in a 6-game run. And you worry about them until they get that win. The Pittsburgh got that win against the St. Louis Blues, and then they rolled it into a couple more wins. They've won 3 in a row right now, and they're relying heavily on Crosby, Gensel, Malkin, Rust. They're not making any moves right now, and so they're going to have to rely on these guys. On these guys, and I think they need to get a goaltender in as well too. But I'm not sure if that's even going to happen. With that said, Andrew, the revenge spot is what scares me on wanting to take Pittsburgh, because I think Brian's right. I kind of like the plus money with Pittsburgh until Tampa starts playing a little bit better. I might take Pittsburgh in this one first period. They're playing extremely well. Maybe they come out and you're going to get plus money on them in the first period here. Slight lean to the over in this one as well too. I think if Tampa wins this, they're going to score themselves out of this little mini 3-game, 3 losses in 4 slump that they have. Some of the scores between these 3, Andrew, are unbelievable. Pittsburgh has won the last 3, 7-3 and 6-2 this season. And then you go back to last year where they went to Tampa and beat them 5-1. That's a lot of goals. That's what are we looking at? 18 goals in 3 games they've scored on Tampa. So the revenge factor might be there, but this Pittsburgh, at least short-term dominance, has been there against Tampa Bay. So it would not surprise me for the Penguins to go in there and beat Tampa tonight.
And as far as the total here, it's one of those ones where I think that usually I state the best team is the one that dictates the total, which is kind of why in that Bruins game, I'm hoping the Bruins kind of lead it into more of a low-scoring game and a battle-it-out game. But this one here, I mean, Pittsburgh, no matter what game they're in right now, I feel like it has to be a high-scoring game. If they win, they have to score 4 or 5 goals. I don't trust their defense right now. But speaking of defenders, one play I do like today, guys, is Victor Hedman over on shots on goal for him. This is a guy that's, a consistent part of the Tampa Bay Lightning offense, not just a defenseman for them, but he's someone that constantly jumps into the rush. He's on the power play. He shoots from the point. And the best part about him is that his number is minus 115, 120 at the very most. And you can get him at 2.5. This is a guy that's had 4, 7, 6 shots and a lot of his most recent games here. And Pittsburgh ranked 21st in the league in shots allowed per game. And when you've got a team in the situation that Tampa is in right now, I feel like there's going to be a simple message. Keep it simple, get pucks on net, and every single person, don't try and overcomplicate things. And that starts with the defenseman, don't need to make that extra pass, get the puck on net. I could see Victor Hedman cashing this for us early in this game. So over 2.5 shots on goal for Victor Hedman is a prop I have my eye on for tonight. Now, here's a big one, Carm. The Maple Leafs and the Calgary Flames going head-to-head. I sent a message to our group yesterday with Prez and said, my app's not working. Can anybody tell me what the score is for the Maple Leafs game? And Prez said, hey, I was happy because he had the over. So I'm happy he was able to cash a ticket while his team put forward a pretty rough one against McDavid and the Oilers. But they get a quick chance to respond in what you have named the Alberta double, as the Leafs are plus 105, Flames minus 125. What do you have for us, Mr. Bianco?
Yeah, it's the Alberta double. Yeah, that's listen, Edmonton played such a good game against the Leafs last night. It was so well that I saw in this morning's news that the Stanley Cup playoff parade in Toronto has been temporarily postponed, at least until tonight, to see when we see what they do against the Calgary Flames. Leafs opened up at -115 in this game, and it's been all money thus far on the Calgary Flames. The Leafs are now plus 105 on the Wager Talk Live lines. Calgary is -125. And maybe it has something to do with Wall being in goal. Joseph Wall is confirmed he will start tonight for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Obviously, with the injuries to their goaltending, and you look at it, and Andrew, I think he's like 4-2. But if you look at it, the teams that Wall has started against are not teams that really should worry you offensively. Last year against the Buffalo Sabres, that was a bad version of the Sabres. Columbus, Montreal this year, the New York Islanders, San Jose Sharks, and the Winnipeg Jets. Those aren't teams that scream offense. The Calgary Flames do have offense, and they get the Leafs on a back-to-back. It will not surprise me for the Calgary Flames to beat the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight, and I think the market suggests it, and that's where I'm leaning. I'm not sure about the total. Like I said, Calgary's coughed up some leads. That game against the Vegas Golden Knights, they had one shot on goal in the third period, coughed up a certain win and turned it into a loss. It is what the Calgary Flames do as well, too. So maybe you want to lean to the over here and we see some goals, because you would think the Leafs want to bounce back off that dismal performance last night. So maybe we do see some goals, but I think the Flames are the play here. Ryan, your thoughts? Are you with me or against me?
It's interesting because Calgary, and I've talked about this with Edmonton, they are by far the one team in the league in which they can completely outplay the opposition and lose a game. There's been 18 times this year that Calgary has the better shots on goal, expected shots on goal at the end of the game, and they lost 18 times. We saw it again just a couple days ago against Colorado. They should have had that victory. They didn't get it. And there's the teams like, let me look at my chart here. I think Montreal twice this year has been in that situation where they had the better shots on goal and expected shots on goal and didn't get the job done. Calgary's a team. There's something wrong there. They've got more talent, and they've shown it on the ice, and they find ways to lose. They do it all the time. And you mentioned Toronto. I watched that game. I also had the over in that game. And Toronto's offense looked bad. They were really bad yesterday. I expect them to bounce back a little bit here. It's either the over for me in this one, or I like Toronto with that number. And you mentioned the backup goaltender. Maybe the over is the way we look here. Toronto, Calgary over, because Calgary can't hold a lead, but they get plenty of leads to do it. And I expected yesterday's game to go over, so I'm looking at more of the same today. I like the over in this one.
It's hard to argue goals in this game, especially with the quick bounce back opportunity for the Maple Leafs. I mean, sometimes, guys, we talk about a team being off a loss, right? But if that team is off a loss and that loss was 4 days ago, you might not have that same anger or revenge. You know what I mean? Like if I was upset about something, I'd want to go and fix that right away. If 4 days later, you might not have that same, intensity in your body. And these guys get to go not too far of a road trip, from, of course, Edmonton to Calgary, and, turn that wrong into a right and try and recover and change things right away. As far as this Calgary team is concerned, though, we talk about this all the time on the show, where a team has played some weaker opponents or tougher opponents. And look, everybody has to play who they're going to play. But when you've played a team like Boston, Colorado, Vegas, it has been tough for the Flames. But that's all honestly their own fault for not winning games earlier in the year against teams they should beat. Now they're losing games against strong teams, which is tough for them. Of course, they do catch Toronto in a tough spot here, but I'm with the guys. I think as much as Calgary will want to turn this one into a defensive battle, They just aren't that team. They literally aren't that team. And as much as I keep trying to think they might be a defensive team, I feel like that's what Daryl Sutter wants them to be, but I don't really think they have that in them. So I'm looking at the over as well. If you look at yesterday's game for the Maple Leafs, let's be honest, guys, like Brian talked about, the over hit because of one team. It did not hit because of two different teams. Tonight, it'll take both teams to do it, and I think that they can come together and we could see a 4-3, 5-3 type of hockey game here. So I'm in agreement here with you guys. I'm on the over.
And Andrew, you look at this game, or you look at Calgary as a whole, and they're on the outside looking in, and that gap just keeps getting bigger. It's around 67 points. Winnipeg's on 72, same amount of games. The Seattle Kraken have come down a bit as well, too, also on 72 points, but with a game in hand. There's still plenty of time, but I keep hearing people say all the time, like, how does Sutter still have a job? And you just wonder about this team. I think the biggest glaring thing, and then I want to make one more point on the team totals, is that Markstrom has not been the goalie that he was last year. So when we talk, Brian was pointing out, with all the attempts that Calgary gets and their expected goals and shots on goal, you need a goalie to support you. And when those aren't going in, and they're really not getting that from Markstrom. He's been anything but stellar this season. And then the point of, like, we always look at team totals, or we want to mention it. The team totals are like a 3.5 plus for Calgary, 3.5, 105 for Toronto. You can't take it too, because you've got to lay about $2 in juice on those ones. But any of those team totals would you look at, Andrew, or both, if you're figuring on a 4-3, 5-3 type of game, or 5-4 type of game?
Yeah, Carm, honestly, I don't really have a lean to a side here. So I just kind of like the over. You know what I mean? Like, this is a game where I don't know with team totals, because, like, potentially the Maple Leafs, I guess, because they're the underdog, right? I guess it's kind of what my answer would be to that, because you're going to get a better price with it. So that's probably what I'd say there. Carm, as far as shots on goal, we got to mention this really quick. I keep shouting out Andy Lang because he talked about it last year all the time, and I was on this guy as well. And one thing that I had to do a better job of, and people are going to find out that you're doing this as well in your best bet segment today, not to spoil it, but Tyler Toffoli, man, he's got over 2.5 shots on goal in 19 of his last 20 games. It's unbelievable. 9 of his last 10 and 19 of his last 20 games, but his number remains at 2.5. So why, for some players, do they have it at 4.5 or 3.5? But for him, they keep it at 2.5. It doesn't make any sense. But what really doesn't make any sense is why I haven't been betting this every time he plays. I don't know why I'm picking my spots. Some of these guys, you got to just keep betting it. So I wanted to mention that. And also, for anybody out there looking for the Leafs, for some props for them, Ryan O'Reilly, I think it's 4 of his last 5 games, he's gone over his number. And if I'm correct here, I think it's still 1.5 for him, which is kind of shocking. Let me just pull it up here. Yeah, I'm surprised by that. We're still seeing a 1.5. So the fact that his number is 1.5, I mean, to me, that is ridiculous that a guy like him that gets traded at the deadline and is brought to bring a lot of offense to them is only getting 1.5 for his shots total. To me, is quite shocking. But let's keep things going here and jump into the Minnesota Wild and Vancouver Canucks. Going to go to you, Brian, for this one. Vancouver plus 140, Minnesota minus 165. Minnesota is kind of a confusing team right now, Brian. I'm curious what you have for us with that team.
Yeah, they have been. They haven't been able to put any goals on the board, and that's been a problem pretty much all season for them. In fact, you go back for the month of February, I believe they only had one game when they beat Nashville 4-3, in which they scored more than 3 goals in a game. That said, if you take a look at the Minnesota schedule, starting on February 9th, they played 7 straight home games. 2 road games, went to Columbus and Toronto, not very far, not a lot of travel in that regard. Then they come home, play 2 more home games. This is their first time they've actually had to leave for an extended period in a month. I mean, they should be very fresh in this regard. They go to Vancouver, they go to Calgary, then they come back home, play Calgary, once, then they're back on the road for 4 more games. So this is probably, if you're looking to play Minnesota on for the next week or two, probably the next 2 weeks, this is probably the best health you're going to get them in, or is they'll tire as the week goes on. But as of right now, they're a very fresh team. Vancouver is one of these teams that, I really don't think the coaching changes made much of a difference. They're not blowing big leads, but they're not getting big leads. So what can you do about that? But this Vancouver team has been up and down on the road and home lately. And if you take a look at their schedule, they're just starting a nice 6-game homestand. So we'll see what we get out of them now that they're able to stay home, get a little bit more practice time in with the new coaching staff, see what we get. But as of right now, I think the spot screams Minnesota here. Don't like to lay that kind of number on the road with a team that doesn't score very much. But that's the only way I take Minnesota based on the schedule.
All right, great stuff there, Brian Leonard. And again, guys, we have actually extended the PT100 promo code. That's good until the end of the week. That's PT100. Get $100 off an NHL pass that includes the playoffs as well. You can use that app for Brian Leonard over at wagertalk.com. You can also use it for Carmine at wagertalk.com. Carm, 5 straight unders for the Minnesota Wild. Of course, now they're playing a team like Vancouver. Do you keep riding this under streak, or what do you have for us in this game?
I think so. I think it's one of the ones where if you like Minnesota and it's tough not to like Minnesota, then you take the under. It seems kind of correlated, and you look at Vancouver as well too, and obviously trading away some players, some scoring, but Thatcher Demko being in goal, and he should start tonight. And I'm going to make a prediction on that in a second. But him starting, he played 1 game. He got peppered by Dallas, and they still won that game 4-3 in OT in Dallas. I think there was 38 shots on goal. That was his first start in, I think, a couple of months. And I honestly believe that this is one of those things that he talked about getting traded. And I don't think he has a problem with getting traded, but I think any team that is looking at Thatcher Demko and how he's come back from that injury wants to see at least a couple starts out of him. And that's why tonight's start is an important one. If he plays extremely well, I'm going to go on a limb here and say, Andrew, the Vancouver Canucks move Thatcher Demko after tonight's game. If he has a very good game, there's going to be a team that's going to offer up something, and they're going to move him. I like the under here. I'm not going to pick a side because the price, I think, is a little too high on Minnesota, even though I think they're the right side. And I'm just going to take the under in this game. I think we see another one of those Minnesota low-scoring wins, 3-1. Who knows? I don't care. It's one of those ones. I don't care who wins. As Pablo says, I just like the under. So no goals or very few goals, and under 6 here. And then we see where that Thatcher Demko heads.
Yeah, it could definitely happen. There's going to be some goaltenders move. We haven't seen that many quite yet, and there's definitely some goalies that will be on the move. And you've talked about it, Carm. I feel like you're on the trade center right now. That's been your guy. So we'll see if you're correct on that one. But Demko, he's a great goalie. We'll see if he gets moved to a team that, well, as Brian stated, is a little bit better than Vancouver, because Vancouver, they haven't showed us much. Even since the new coach, they haven't really showed us much there. So great stuff there, guys. And as for me, I like the under overall in this one. I think I would look towards team total under 2.5 for the Canucks. You can get that -110. I just it would really bug me if this was the breakout game the Wild have, and they put up 5 goals or something, and we lose the full game under, but Vancouver only scores 1 or 2. So if I'm playing the under, I think I would just focus in on Vancouver, because we could see Minnesota have themselves a game tonight. Let's go to best bets here, guys. Let's jump in right to it here. Start with you, Brian. Let us know what you have going on today across all sports, and your best bet for today.
Yeah, I'll be short today. I've got 3 shows, so I don't have any plays up right now. Still working on it between the shows, hoping to pick some other people's brains like I have yours, and maybe something will pop in there where I can agree. I'm going to go back to the Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay game. I didn't mention this. Carmine mentioned 3 straight wins. They're 4-1 the last 5 in Tampa Bay, including 2 straight wins in Tampa. 4-1 against Tampa, 2-0 in Mahle Arena. team in Pittsburgh playing better right now. They won 3 straight. They won, I believe, 5 out of their last 8 on the road. Tampa Bay right now, a little bit underperforming as of late. I know the revenge situation is there, but it is the first game back home. But I think we get a little bit of money value here on the Pittsburgh Penguins.
All right, Pittsburgh Penguins, and you got to love that price. I love when Brian comes on the show and gives us a price like that. You got to love it. Carm, what do you have for us today, pal?
Right, 3 plays up NHL tonight. They are either sides and totals, and I'm going to put some prop plays up as a bonus as well too, to look to bounce back off of yesterday and get on a little roll. I'm an old guy, man. I think I'm the oldest guy on this show, so because Dave Koken's not here, so I'm going to use some lyrics. Stephen Stills, 1970. If you can't be with the one you love the one you're with. Yesterday, I gave out Jason Robertson over 3.5 shots on goal. I'm giving out Jason Robinson again over 3.5 goals. Sorry, over 3.5 shots on goal, minus 135. He hit it yesterday, 3 straight games. The Stars get a much needed victory, and I'm looking for them to get another one tonight and him to be a big part of it. So Robertson over 3.5 shots on goal, minus 135 as your show best bet.
He got it done yesterday. Why not do it again? Great stuff there, Jason Robertson, over on his shots on goal. And for my best bet today, guys, the Florida Panthers are a team that have been very up and down. You know, win one, lose one, win one, lose one, win one, lose one. But they find themselves in situations today against a Nashville Predators team that has just sold off a couple different players. You know, they sold off, they traded away a key forward, a very key defenseman. And it just seems like this team is almost finally accepting that they weren't going to make that push. They might as well start acquiring some draft picks or some younger players. And I know that we were saying to be cautious out of this trade deadline period, but sometimes you got to find teams you're looking to fade. And right now, this Nashville Predators team is a team I'm looking to fade. And the Florida Panthers are a desperate team right now that look to get and start playing some consistent hockey, despite having a couple guys out of the lineup. So in regulation right now, you can get the Florida Panthers at minus 110 to win that game within 60 minutes against the Predators. And that's where I'm going for my best bet. Expect a great effort out of this Florida Panthers team over a Nashville team that's missing a couple guys that will not be able to, I don't think anybody's going to be able to fill the role for that team. So I have Florida in regulation. Carmine has Robertson over 3.5 shots on goal, and Bryan with Pittsburgh at a great plus 140 price. On behalf of Bryan, Carmine, I'm Andrew. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
How do you like to finish the college basketball season paying under $30 per week? Between now and Selection Sunday on March 12th, there's still tons of regular season college basketball action to go. Plus, all of the conference tournaments and Wager Talk and Sports Memo are announcing their March Madness Bonanza special that will include the rest of the college basketball regular season, conference tournaments, NCAA tournament through the national championship, and any plays released in the NIT or CBI tournaments. That's right, from Monday, February 27th through Monday, April 3rd, there are 5 full weeks of hoops action, which breaks down to under $30 per week. Sign up for this promotion now on your favorite handicapper's homepage and get the rest of the college basketball season through the national championship in Houston on Monday, April 3rd, plus all non-March Madness tourneys, including the NIT and CBI, all for only $149. That's under $5 a day for one of the best betting experiences in sports. Some call March Madness the most exciting time in sports betting, so act fast as the March Madness Bonanza special is only available for a limited time. Grab your favorite college basketball handicapper, or perhaps add 2 or 3 college hoops experts to make this March Madness not only exciting, but also profitable. No coupon is needed. Just head to the homepage of the handicapper of choice and lock the $149 price in now. As the earlier you sign up, the